Sean, welcome to the podcast. Super excited to talk to you about a very important topic for all of us, which is investments, personal investments, financial well-being, and your career story. So give our audience a little snapshot of who you are and your career story.
Well, first off, Elena, thank you so much for the invite, and I'm really excited to talk about finance and investing and do my best to make it as approachable as possible. So here's my backstory. I've been in IT for the last 15 years, primarily as a project manager, but I've been an entrepreneur as well. So it started 2006. I started an agency, and I built that agency through the duration of 4 years. Now, it was not a glamorous experience at all. This is the Great Recession, and trying to bring on small and mid-sized businesses was really difficult. We were growing, but it was kind of at my own expense. I was increasing the liabilities, you could say. So I was adding more people to help serve more clients, and there are many months I wasn't taking a paycheck. It was that entrepreneurial grind, you could call it.
Yeah.
So I did that for 4 years now. 2010, we did really start accelerating growth, and there was another agency, a much bigger agency, that saw the clients we're bringing on, decided, hey, let's buy your business, which was great. Now, it wasn't one of those moments where, hey, here's $1 million check and you can ride off to the sunset and do your own thing. There was none of that. It was essentially all debts and liabilities were wiped out, so I got a fresh start. And I knew at that point what type of business was for me and what wasn't. And I knew, like, okay, so a service business or an agency, it's a lot of work. You're trading your time for a paycheck. There's no residual revenue. But at the same time, we got to work with a lot of businesses, about 400 businesses we either worked with or quoted. So that gave me insight on what's a scalable business model and what's not. So at that point, I'm like, okay, I'm going to create a SaaS business at some point, but I didn't have any SaaS ideas, so I decided to go work for large companies, worked for GE, Kohler being another, and a few others as well. But what I did is the next 10 years plus, I worked for large public companies, learning how public companies operate, how they market, how they sell is really good experience. But at the same time, I started investing in either private businesses or the stock market. And this was like 2011, started investing in more private businesses. I was like, okay, so I built and sold a business. I'm a smart guy, right? I can get out there, invest in, a new tech startup, find that unicorn and watch it go to 1,000%. Needless to say, that never happened. So I knew after about 5 years, I was investing in some businesses that made some money, but it was mostly a losing game. And I decided, you know what? I really respect investing, but I'm not doing it correctly. I need to turn to like Warren Buffett and the people that actually know what they're doing. So this was around 2014 or 15. I decided, okay, let's start going down the rabbit hole of YouTube and let's start reading as many books as I could. Needless to say, right, there's a lot of noise out there in finance, a lot of bad advice. I found a guy by the name of Phil Town. He, however, had a few books that were extremely helpful. He just speaks to you like a normal person, keeps it in simple terms. The two books are, if your audience is interested, one is Rule One, the other one is Payback Time. And what I did is, after reading the books, he provided a lot of calculations to kind of cut through the clutter of investing, to really find good stocks. And I'm like, all right, so let's put this into Excel, kind of added my own twist to it. And he stated that you should be aiming for 15% in the market, as opposed to if you were to just go to like an index or maybe go through a wealth manager or financial advisor, you'll probably make between 6 and 8% on average. So I'm like, all right, 15%. This is a good benchmark. And sure enough, first year using this Excel sheet I created, made 15%. Next year made 16%. And then my returns just kept going up from there. And I'll summarize here, but over the course of about 4 years, my average returns were closer to 50% per year. So I'm like, all right, I might have something here. And at the whole time, of course, I'm still maintaining a corporate job and just playing things conservative, working in the bigger businesses, learn how they operate, which is great experience. But anyway, I decided, let's start talking to some people about this Excel sheet I created to see if they'd use it. So I talked to some retail investors, just regular people like you and I, as well as some institutions, and asked them, hey, would you use this if it were turned into a software? And their response was, when is it going live? Mm-hmm. So I knew, I'm like, all right, so 10 years later, I've got my SaaS idea, software as a service. And we started developing in 2019, went live in 2020. And now it's 2 years later, we have just over 6,500 customers and we're in about 50 countries. And the name of the tool is Tykr, Tykr. You go to the website, and it helps people manage their own investments. So it steers you towards good stocks and keeps you away from the bad ones, like I have to call them out here, like the GameStops and the AMCs of the world that probably aren't the strongest business models. So yeah, that's a quick summary of my background.
Hey you, thanks for watching. If you're enjoying this episode, make sure to share it with friends and family who might find it interesting. Make sure to hit the subscribe button as well to stay up to date on weekly new videos that are going to be coming out with some awesome guests that I bring on. And if you have any questions, use the comment section to ask me questions, to interact. I look forward to talking to you. I love it. It's so interesting. I love it how what I appreciate about entrepreneurial journeys in general is why I always ask people, like, tell me your career story, because there's always a story and it's usually very interesting. And it's how you came about was very natural. And that's another takeaway, because I have a lot of my audience wants to start a business, right? And everybody's looking for this magic formula. And based on your story and so many others, there's just no magic formula. Like, it's just things just kind of work out in a specific way, and you try some things work, some things don't, but naturally, as long as you remain that curiosity, eventually all those pieces fall together, as it has in your case. So I find that very, very interesting.
The key takeaway, and I learned this really working for larger companies, is you're right, there is no magic bullet here. And what you should do is, to anybody starting a business or you're thinking about creating some kind of ideas, go talk to people, find out what their pain is. I'm really big on, and we're really big on with Tykr, is listen to the customer. We're really big on customer service, and we ask those questions. And I love, you'll hear somebody say pain point. Well, let's dive into that. What is the real why behind the scene? What is really causing this? And you peel back that onion, and then you can land on the features, the actual product that a lot of people are going to use. But it's just taking that first step and really starting the conversation with the customer.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's the big downfall of many entrepreneurs, is you might have this great idea, but nobody really needs it. So you gotta go through that process, right? Like, emphasize with your customer, find out what is their pain point. And a lot of times that pain point, you have to walk them through it, because that pain point sometimes is just putting a band-aid on a broken leg. And the real pain point is like down here. And that's where it's at. Yeah. So I find that very, very interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. And here's another thing too, is when you first start talking to the customer, the idea you think is going to be marketable is completely opposite of what the customer really wants.
Exactly.
Yeah. So for example, with Tykr, I'm thinking, oh my gosh, it's the algorithm, it's the idea of finding great stocks. It is actually nice, but the real win, why a lot of people like it, is the education, the ability to increase confidence, the simplicity. So it's all these other things I wasn't really thinking about up front. And we kind of lean into that after talking to customers, and the algorithm. Long story short, we once had a patent on it and we got rid of it. We made it all open source to increase trust. It's like, forget it. It's like, just put it out there.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, yeah, that's really a nice strategy, actually. It's yeah, I think that's where a lot of just startups and the small businesses go wrong, is they just focus so much on these other things, when at the end of the day it just comes out to trust, consistency with your customers. That's what develops the trust, and just that transparency, essentially. So we talked a little bit before we started recording this last time we chatted. We talked about how finances are viewed very differently in different parts of the world. So although I've spent most of my life in the US, originally, as my audience, and you also know that I grew up in Russia. And in Russia, for whatever reason, I mean, I have my guesses of why we're like this, but we live today. We don't think about tomorrow. We don't think about a year from now is not even on the horizon. So we don't think about investments. And when we do things about investments, it's how can I make money tomorrow? How can I make big money? So it's never like, we never think beyond that. And I found it very interesting, because culturally, there's a lot of cultures that are also very much like that. And then, having come to the US and kind of been grown up here, I also realized that it is more prominent here in terms of thinking about the future and these sort of things. But at the same time, there's not a lot of education that goes into this in traditional kind of schools or universities. Why do you think that is? And why haven't people caught up to that?
You know, there's one common denominator I see across the globe, and that is we're raised from a young age, no matter where you're from, to work for money. You're almost like people are taught to bow to it, to obey it. It almost becomes an idol. And we're not taught how to flip that equation so money bows to us, right? Money is working for us. In other words, how do you create a system or create a process so money is coming your way while you're enjoying time with your family and your friends and your hobbies? And investing is actually, it's super easy to get into. We're not taught about this in school. I wish it were, like at grade school level, middle school, high school. You never touch the subject, unfortunately. Um, and it's actually really easy to get into. The concept is simple. It's like you want to put your money into a business that's providing value to others. And by doing so, everybody wins. That business is growing, and you're seeing your money grow. It's just brilliant.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you're right. We are not taught to have money work for us. It's almost like you're seen as this like money hungry person if you just want to figure out what to
Yeah.
do with your money. It's like there's
Right.
this what's their taboo almost around money,
Hmm.
right? And it's like, well, you should be conservative. And some other cultures also a little bit more conservative, and it's like, should be
Right.
thankful for what we have, and it's enough, and it is what it is. So it's I find it very interesting because I've had this conversation with different cultures about money,
Hmm.
and I that this is so when you and I talked, I was like, this is perfect. Like we have to talk about
Right.
this. Um,
You make a good point there. I want to touch on is, and that is a good attitude to have. Like we should always be thankful for what we have, right? And greed is definitely an enemy of anybody. There's a lot of greedy people out there, of course, and that can create a lot of problems in your life. But that foundation of like gratitude, like, okay, I'm thankful for what I have, but you should also be a good steward of where you put your money, whether you're investing in a business or let's say you're investing in some kind of nonprofit organization, something you are passionate about. Those are good things. And I think they need to be reinforced from a young age on in every culture in some way, shape, or form. But investing, it's you find that people that if you can get after it at a younger age and
mm,
start putting money to work, whether it's $5 a month or $50 or whatever, it's just a start and it builds and it builds and it builds.
mm. What do you think is the biggest challenge people have when it comes to investing? Is it education? Is it fear of losing money? Like, what is it?
The biggest thing is it's fear. And with that, like with Tykr, we're really big on there's one key word we really reinforce and focus on, which is confidence. How do
Mm,
we give you the confidence to manage your own investments? And it's kind of like, let's say you're going to a swimming pool, you're going to jump into the deep end. It's scary, like for the first time, right? Oh my gosh, I've got this deep pool ahead of me and I'm going to jump in. But once you do it once, it becomes really easy thereafter. So it's really just that first step. So that's what we do with Tykr. We teach you like, hey, we're here to help you with that first step. And then from there, you can gradually increase. And that's seriously, I'm not kidding you, that is the hardest step. Okay, so you're going to buy an individual stock. What do I do? Which one do I pick? All those questions we help answer.
mm,
But it's really fear is that first step forward.
mm. One of the biggest misconceptions I've had when I first kind of start, looking into my own personal finance is when I'll make X number of dollars, I'll put some towards investment, right? So,
Mhm.
and I quickly kind of realized like, oh, man, that's not the best way. So, do you need to, be a rich person to invest? Do you like, because I think that's some big misconceptions, like, like, well, I don't have enough money, like, because people think big numbers. So, talk to me about that.
Yeah, that's exactly the opposite of what you should be thinking. We tell people you should be investing every month, and it's not the dollar amount, it's the percentage.
Mm,
And we try to get people to focus on, and this is Warren Buffett has been in the same range as well, but try to take 15 to 30% of your monthly income and invest it. Now, if you can't be 15%, that's okay. We teach people try to put in whether it's $50 or $100 and go from there. For example, we're starting to get a lot of kids that are in high school that are joining our platform,
mm,
and they are in a position where they're even contemplating going to college. They're like, hey, if I can continue to invest and get a job right away. So there's opportunity costs that you take away the education and all the costs with tuition. I'm going to start working a job. And this is a whole other topic of a
Yeah.
conversation, but to talk about blue collar jobs are really in demand, right? You can start making a good income and invest that by the age of 40. I mean, I'm talking to people right now, they are done. They are retiring at age 40. It's incredible.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's so powerful. And yeah, I don't want to get into the education side because I don't know if you know this, but I've spent a lot of years of my life in higher education in different parts of higher education. And then on the flip side of the corporate, where basically looking at the gap between what education provides, the traditional four-year
Mhm.
institutions versus the finances that come out on the other end. So yeah, it's my audience knows that's a very pain point for me. It's a painful topic to discuss. We spend hours, but absolutely, I think that if anything, it allows you that freedom. And one of the things that I aim with this podcast is to help people find, like, making the shift in a way that where one is just fulfilled. Like, I'm not saying like you need to be happy,
Mhm.
joyful every day. Like, if you get that, beautiful, but I just feel like a lot of reasons we're so unhappy in our days. And we know the statistics. I mean, Gallup does a lot of research around
Mhm.
employee engagement and happiness at work, and we know that 85% of individuals globally and working in big names and making good salaries are completely unsatisfied. And I think
Oh
part of
yeah.
that is because of that fear to let go and make a change. And a lot of that fear is around finances, like, oh, well, I can't afford to quit my job, I don't, and percentage wise, I'm curious if you have any statistics, but I'm sure there's, like, X number of percentage of Americans, for example, that don't have enough savings to survive 6 months if they lose a job, right? So it's like there's a lot of that, a lot of fear around finances and trying to change something in your life.
It does create a lot of anxiety. Like in the US, some of the stats are if you're a millennial, even Gen Z, you're expected to like most people are expected to retire into their 70s or maybe not even retire at all. And the reasons are student loans, one. Two, with that, there was a later start to getting your income moving, the machine, I call it, because of the Great Recession. So if you graduated around that time, which was around my time, it was 2006, you really didn't start making an income until like well past 2012, just because businesses and hiring and getting experience at age was really tough. It was rare, at least. Another factor today we're dealing with, especially in the States, is high rent and lack of houses. So houses are super expensive. So everything has become super expensive. And now there's all this overhead. People aren't going to retire as fast, especially, and I still know people that they're putting their money to work into index funds or ETFs or mutual funds, which are 6 to 8%. It's very conservative. It's the way our parents and our grandparents and everybody before invested. Give it to a financial advisor, nothing wrong with them because they'll help you maintain your wealth. But most people in this stage of their life need to be in the growth phase, not the maintenance phase. And that's where it's individual companies. And this goes back to a previous comment is the most fearful part of the process is that first step forward, buying that first stock. Because once you get there, it becomes much easier thereafter.
Hmm. And does your platform, is it the stock wise, is kind of variety, or is it more focused on long-term investment, or they have a choice?
Yeah, so Ticker's focus on what's called value investing, which is long term. It looks for really strong, financially strong businesses. A lot of these businesses are going to be quite boring, but boring is good, as Warren Buffett teaches. It steers you away from the glamorous, make a quick buck. This is not a get rich quick scheme. Investing is not get rich quick.
Right.
It's all about, you want to maintain some kind of income, whether it's a business or a job. And like I said earlier, throwing 15 to 30% into your broker. Our platform is called a screener, so it finds stocks. You still need to go with a broker depending on what country you're in, because we're in most countries around the world. But like, for example, I'm in the States, I use TD Ameritrade is really popular. There's also Robinhood or E-Trade in the States. Worldwide Interactive Brokers is probably the biggest footprint. But anyway, you're with Tykr, it's these long-term safer stocks Again, you're not going to see the big results tomorrow, but over
Right.
the next year, next 2 years, that's when things start showing, and it's a really good feeling.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you have, just curious, is there like a theme to your customer? Like, is there like a trend on who tends to
Mhm.
invest more, maybe generation wise, or just, I don't know, male versus females? I'm just curious.
Well, it's a nice split now. It might be skewed slightly towards men, but we have an issue we're trying to overcome in our space, which is making it really user friendly and inviting for women as well.
Mhm.
Because we see a lot of finance platforms, they're strictly, like, for example, there's some platforms out there, the logo itself is like a guy in a suit. Like, you're not being inclusive at all
Right.
for women. So we do have a lot of women. And for example, I try to do a free Ask Me Anything webinar once or twice a month and bring people on. And we had probably a 30-70 split, 30% women. It was that
Nice.
audience is increasing. But our audience, give you an idea, it's a lot of people can be between the ages of like 16, 18, all the way up to like 55, 60. So it's all over the board. And most of the people, especially those that are in their working years, let's say 18, 20 years old on up through their 50s, they have number one, steady income. That's a key indicator. There are people out there, there's entrepreneurs that'll join, but they're like kind of in hustle mode, you could call it. They're some of them are looking for the quick buck, but we definitely tell these people, like, it doesn't matter if you have a business or a job, and don't worry about your income so much, because what's more important is how much money you can invest with that percentage, because compound interest will always make you more money than your salary. This is a whole nother topic of conversation, but I know people who are clawing tooth and nail for another 2 to 3% salary increase because it's going to make them sleep better at night. I'm like, you're wasting your time. This is a moot point.
Mm,
Like, I tell people, never ask for a raise, keep the high ground and ask for more time, and then just put more money if you can. Try to put more money into your broker, your investment account, because that's where you grow your wealth faster.
yeah. That's interesting. That's such a good point, actually.
Mhm.
Yeah, we tend to, and that's the thing, because those are the things we're taught again, right? Like, right? It's
Yeah.
just,
Yeah.
right? That's what we're taught. I mean, like, I don't know, really. If you're in education, you listen to this, let's do something about that, really, because it's just, or at least
Mhm.
educating ourselves and our families, I don't know, spreading the words. And I love that the fact that you have these webinars. I think it's super educational just to have
Mhm.
access to these things. I think it's just awareness. People, we don't know what we don't know, and I feel like a lot of people just don't know. And when we're not sure about something, we don't know. There's the fear that kicks in, and so it's like a vicious circle. So
Right.
so yeah, it's nice that you guys are providing a lot of education around your platform as well.
Yeah, that's the key thing, is make it accessible, simplify the language. Finance has a lot of acronyms. What does this mean? What does that mean? It's like a foreign language, and you got
Yeah.
to simplify things. You got to make it really easy. So we really do our best. We lean into that because that's more important than, any kind of algorithm or complex math behind the scenes. It's about making it user friendly and easy to understand, and that's what we're leaning into. That's what really makes us different.
Yeah. And so you as an entrepreneur, if I just want to bring it back to that for just a
Sure.
moment. So you as an entrepreneur, you're juggling, it sounds like you're juggling a lot of things, right? So I'm sure you stay very busy and you have your hobbies, as I can tell by the wall behind you. So with the music. So
Yep.
do you have some habits or routines that you follow to kind of stay focused and manage time?
I love this question. When I was in my 20s and had that first business, I was working too much. I was working like 60 hours a week, and I didn't know how to work smarter I was definitely working harder as opposed to smarter.
Mm.
And when I had that reset moment where I could go work for a larger business, I was like, you know what? I want to live. And I am really big on hobbies. I'm anti-hustle culture. If there's anything, like, I know a lot of entrepreneurs, especially tech entrepreneurs, they follow these quote unquote gurus and this hustle culture and the work nonstop. I know I'll call his name out right now. Elon Musk is all about working as many hours as possible. I'm anti everything that.
Yeah.
I am all about create a business, provide value, but life is about living. you need to enjoy the journey. So I enjoy time with family, friends. I've got the guitars behind me. I love music, but I'm doing a lot of mountain biking. I'm picking up golf. I'm out fishing. I live in Wisconsin, so I'm all around lakes. I'm out on the lakes all the time during the summer. But it's like, yeah, you have to enjoy this. And what that does is that balance creates a healthy mindset. So when I'm working, I can work more efficient. I'm not going to be filling the day with non-revenue generating activity, which I see a lot of entrepreneurs doing. I ask them, what do you do in a day? And most of what they tell me is all waste. It's not actually producing results. So when I work, I try to focus on what is going to move the needle and only do that.
Yeah, no, that's very important, and I think it's so easy to get caught up. And with your own business, it's there's always something to do, and you have to cut yourself off. Like there's always something more that you can do, and you're right. A lot of time is spent with just doing activities that may or may not generate revenue. And then once you're in it, it's just that's just the norm, and then the guilt kicks in if you're not doing it. You're like, well, am I there? It's just a vicious cycle on its own, absolutely. But it also comes with experience, and in your case, like you've been doing this for quite some time, like since your early 20s. So you've been doing it for quite some time, and kind of you've picked up a lot. And I feel like it's one of those things, because I went into burnout like twice. Now I know better. Now I take my weekends. I don't work 7 days a week. I have a very clear boundary. Saturday, Sunday, sometimes I just watch TV all day, and I'm okay, and I don't feel guilty at all. That's like my guilty pleasure, and I don't even care for, like, I mean, I watch like movies or something, but it's just, and I'm the person that needs to go all the time. So it's interesting because it comes with experience. I think once you kind of, once the excitement of entrepreneurship settles in and you realize that you're actually better if you take a break, you actually show up a lot better in your business and with the people around you. But yeah, so it's as much as like I also tell people, like, don't work too hard. But I also, from my own experience at least, I'm like, it's one of those things, like you just got to get through it, and then just like realize on your own, like, okay, this is my limitation, this is my limit.
I want to drill into this a little bit because this is a really fun topic. I was talking to an entrepreneur last week. He's got a finance related tech business, and I was asking him, how are you doing? And he was telling me about the business. I was like, no, I'm not asking about that. I'm asking about how are you doing? And he's like, be honest with you, I'm really stressed out. I'm working around the clock. We're trying to find product market fits. In other words, trying to find customers for their business. And I'm like, you need to create balance, take those steps back, because what that does is it eases the mind and creates clarity, and you're going to get these ideas. And then when you get those ideas, you know exactly what to execute on. Whereas if you're just plowing forward, it becomes this muddy process of being busy but not producing results. And I learned that at a young age. So now I'll give a quick overlay of my routine. Like I'm up really early, like 4 a.m., off to the gym, do like hour and a half of CrossFit or something like it. And then when I get to work, like I'm super refreshed, super clear. And then midday, I go out and I take a walk and listen to a podcast for an hour. So I got another like time there. So when I come back from that break, it's like, okay, so I'm thinking about this. Let's just execute on this, and this, and go. I'm usually done working by 4, just so I can have my nights off. and then it's like, I always have stuff to do, and I just write it down. Otherwise, you're going to go to sleep with it, right? Your list is going to be generating while you're sitting. I just write it down before my day ends, and that's it. I leave it, and I come back to the list the next day, and it just repeats.
Yeah, I love that routine. I love that routine. I think there's a lot of power in early mornings as well. I'm a 5 a.m. kind of person. I don't do 4.
Okay.
More power to you. You get a lot more in your day than I do with that 1 hour, seriously. But it's such a difference, and you're right, and it allows that balance, because you just get so much more done, and at the same time you're not killing yourself doing it. So it's you focus on quality work, and yeah, I mean, I'm a huge fan of sleep. So I think it's so important. If I don't get my sleep, I mean, my friends know me. They're like, don't talk to Elaine. So my sleep is so important. And so it's a good, definitely, whoever's listening, I hope you take note of this. As hard as it is to sometimes make a change, I think that's where it's at. It's the basics. I always say the mental, physical, and emotional well-being, just the base of everything.
I gotta add something here because you made a good point about, change is tough. And when I was working, corporate jobs the last 10, 11, 12 years or so, a lot of people can get comfortable. That's very, very common. Okay, so I've got a salary, I've got benefits, corporate job, and you think about ideas, and then a year goes by, and then 3 years go by, and you're still there. And I had to make the choice. I told myself in 2015 or 16, I was now at it about 5 or 6 years. I'm like, I've got to make a move, and I have to do it. I even if it's the small steps, but it was okay, first learning how to invest and then the idea in 2019-20 to execute on the SaaS. And I told myself, I have to move on this because if I sit and think about this idea, I'm going to be sitting on it the next 5 years. I just got to take the very next small step. And here we are a few years later, every day is another small step, but it just compounds over time. And then you can look back, you can thank your younger self. If you could have a time machine, say thank you for making those choices.
Yeah, no, it's very, very valid. I think that's where it's at. And any action is better than inaction. So baby
Yes.
steps is where it's at for sure. So Sean, where can people find you if they want to get in touch? Or I'm definitely going to share your
Sure.
platform on the description, but tell us a little bit more. Where do you hang out?
I keep it really simple. Two locations. First one is Tykr.com. That's Tykr.com. You can go there. Tykr is free to join. We got a trial for anybody. And then LinkedIn. I use LinkedIn a lot. You can find me there. So I'll give you that link as well.
Sounds good. Well, thank you so much for joining me. Thank you for an insightful chat, and hopefully we'll chat again sometime.
All right. Thanks, Elena. Appreciate it.